In 1963, the Doom Patrol made their first appearance in issue 80 of DC Comics publication My Greatest Adventure, in an attempt to improve sales of the title and shift the focus of the comic towards the superhero genre. Writers Arnold Drake, Bob Haney, and artist Bruno Premiani introduced the world to the group of superpowered misfits whose various different gifts have caused them alienation and trauma, but facing all this, still fight together to protect the world from evil. Dubbed the world's Strangest Heroes, the original team included the Chief, Niles Caulder, Cliff Steele, the Robotman, Rita Farr, Elasti-Girl, and Larry Trainor, the Negative Man, who all reside at Niles' family home, Doom Manor. The team would often quarrel and suffer personal problems, something that was already common among superhero teams published by Marvel Comics, but was still novel among DC publications. What also made Doom Patrol stand out was its unique and quirky stories, and equally strange rogues gallery that matched the weird tone of the series. The new direction proved to be so popular that by issue 86, My Greatest Adventure was retitled Doom Patrol. However, in 1968, due to low sales, the series was cancelled, with the final issue seeing writer Arnold Drake shockingly kill the team off. This was the first time in comic book history that a cancelled title was concluded with the death of its cast. However, in the following years, the Doom Patrol would return, with notable contributions from writers Paul Kupperberg and Grant Morrison. Morrison's run in particular would gain critical acclaim and heavily influenced later depictions of the team. Doom Patrol has also been adapted for other forms of media. Although not one of the most popular superhero teams, they have never been out of print for more than a few years since their introduction. It's also worth noting that some similarities exist between the original Doom Patrol and Marvel Comics' X-Men, which came out 6 months after Doom Patrol's first issue. But I'm sure that there are far more millionaire wheelchair-bound academics who live in mansions and secretly run Black Ops missions with teams made up of individuals who have been shunned by society than you would actually think. In 2018, the DC Universe streaming service was launched, its content solely being made up of the many DC Comics properties that had over the years been produced for cinema, television, and of course, animation. DC Universe would also create brand new content that was designed to appeal to long-term fans of their characters. These new shows would include the revival of the animated series Young Justice in a more adult third season titled Young Justice Outsiders, and the even more adult animated series Harley Quinn. They also commissioned new live-action shows which would be separate from the CW's Arrowverse continuity. These included Swamp Thing, Titans, and Doom Patrol. Eventually the decision was made that DC Universe would be absorbed into HBO Max, where Doom Patrol would continue to be produced. Developed for television by Jeremy Carver, who has worked as showrunner, writer, and producer on various shows including Being Human, Frequency, Prodigal Son, and Supernatural. Joining him would be Greg Berlanti, known for his work on the television series Dawson's Creek, Brothers and Sisters, Everwood, Political Animals, Riverdale, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and You. You is my favourite kind of trash. He has also been heavily involved in producing, writing, and development of the CW's Arrowverse, alongside acclaimed comics writer Jeff Johns, who as well as producing and writing on the Arrowverse, has written significant stories for DC Comics, including The Flash, Green Lantern, and Aquaman. Johns and Berlanti also produced and co-wrote the Green Lantern movie, so take from that what you will. We are introduced to NASCAR driver Cliff Steele, who after being caught in a horrific car crash is saved by Dr. Niles Caulder, who has transferred Cliff's brain into a robotic body. In order to better help Cliff come to terms with his new state of being, brings him to his family home of Doom Manor. Also living with Caulder is Rita Farr, a 1950s movie star who was exposed to a toxin which in times of stress causes her to lose control of her physical form. And Larry Trainor, a former 1960s United States Air Force test pilot who was exposed to a strange energy force which left him horribly disfigured and radiating lethal levels of radiation. The group lived together for many years in seclusion until the return of Jane, a young woman with 64 superpowered personalities. While Caulder is away, Jane convinces the others to go into the nearby town of Cloverton. However, the group, overwhelmed by the experience, fail to control their abilities and end up endangering the town. Unbeknownst to the group, their actions have set off a chain of events that have drawn the attention of many of Niles Caulder's greatest enemies. Jane, Rita, Cliff, and Larry must put aside their differences and band together to stop Niles' greatest enemy, Mr. Nobody. Main theme and intro. Every aspect of this sequence is beautifully crafted, from its eerie and compelling synth-heavy melody perfectly establishing the tone of the series. It's also very catchy. Accompanying this are some outstanding visuals. Created by production team Elastic, each sequence gives us brief glimpses into the main characters' backgrounds. As the series progresses, these images gain more significance. It's wonderfully crafted and thought out, and does an excellent job preparing the viewer for the sort of show that they are about to watch. Story and characters. Showrunner Jeremy Carver wasn't a passionate fan of comic books growing up, which meant he was able to bring a fresh perspective to the genre, in particular by utilising his unique sense of humour, which can be clearly recognised from his time on Supernatural. This approach is beautifully accompanied by the very talented writing team of Shoshana Sashi, Tom Farrell, Eric Dietel, April Fitzsimmons and Tanya Steele, as well as series producers Neil Reynolds, Tamara Beecher Wilkinson, Chris Dingus, Robert Behrens and Marcus Dalzin. The series takes heavy influence from writer Grant Morrison and artist Richard Case's era of Doom Patrol, incorporating a lot of their characters and story arcs, but also managing to include supporting characters and story elements from all aspects of the comic's history, yet still remaining very faithful to the spirit of the comic. Doom Patrol is a team of traumatized and downtrodden individuals, each of whom has suffered a horrible accident that gave them each superhuman abilities, but also left them scarred and disfigured. The members of the team have found some comfort and purpose through the Chief, but with his sudden absence, the reluctant would-be heroes find themselves called to action by actual superhero Cyborg. However, he soon finds that the Doom Patrol are more of a support group than a superhero team, still too damaged and focused on themselves in order to see their potential for good, which results in rising tensions between them all. The characters are the full focus of the series, which is dark and unflinching in its examination of each of their motivations, and the writers do a phenomenal job in weaving each character's story in between the episode's events. No scene feels forced or superficial. Cliff is in many ways the heart of the show. At the beginning we see him struggle to come to terms with all that he has lost, in particular his daughter, which leads to him attempting to be a surrogate father figure to Jane. Jane is in many ways the catalyst for the events of the series, and is frankly so interesting a character that I would just as likely enjoy a show entirely focused on her. The Underground and the 63 other inhabitants being a fascinating story running throughout. Larry and Rita have known each other the longest, and through that time have developed a bond, but fundamentally they are both self-centered individuals. Rita obsessed and bitter at her lost fame, and Larry unable to accept who he is, resulting in him abandoning his family and loved ones. Niles Caulder acts as a mentor and father figure to all of them, but Niles is clearly a man of many secrets and shady actions. New to the Doom Patrol is Cyborg, a surprising addition as in the comics he is traditionally a member of the Teen Titans, whose live-action version of Titans featured a guest appearance of the Doom Patrol in its first season. However, this continuity is separate to that of the series Titans. This, personally, is my favourite iteration of Cyborg. He is confident and intelligent, motivated and compassionate, a career-minded superhero. But beneath all of that is still a teenage boy who is isolated and alone. All of the group are broken and flawed in some physical and psychological way, in most cases both. And its exploration of depression, suicide, trauma and loss is what separates Doom Patrol from the other superhero shows on TV. But calling it a superhero show in some ways feels like a disservice. There is so much thought put into the characters and quirks and motivations, both in their mannerisms and in how they present themselves when attempting to engage with the rest of the world. A subtle example is Cyborg throughout the series continuously covering up his appearance, clearly uncomfortable with how others see him. Another is a wonderful sequence in which each of the team take turns driving a van, beautifully showcasing their different personalities. Doom Patrol is filled with quirky and random interactions that will all add to the audience's understanding of the cast. A young boy seeing Cliff in his street returns in his own robot suit to challenge him to a dance-off. Is there a point to it? Not really, but it's still great. Doom Patrol is also filled with awesome supporting characters. Danny, a sentient genderqueer teleporting street, animal vegetable mineral man, and my absolute favourite superhero, Flex Mentallo, master of muscle mystery. It's a series that is strange and unexpected at every turn, with clear influences from Twin Peaks in its overall look and feel. It's a show which features ancient lost cities and snow globes, rapture-obsessed talking cockroaches, and message-farting donkeys. But the writers never lose track of keeping you interested in empathy towards the characters, whilst continuing to gross you out or make you laugh. A lot of Doom Patrol, especially in the first couple of episodes, is deceptive in how it indulges in Deadpool-style self-aware antics. Its primary antagonist, Mr. Nobody, is a being who exists beyond time and space, and is well aware that he is on a streaming TV show, often telling you when he sees a trope being deployed or avoided, and is utterly scathing towards the tropes of the now oversaturated superhero genre. He is a villain that is both very entertaining but also at times terrifying. Other villains of note include Admiral Whiskers, Ezekiel the Cockroach, and the Beard Hunter. The Beard Hunter is a good example of the writers making clever changes to the comics mythology, originally a Punisher type character who hunted people with beards, partly because he cannot grow his own. In this series, the Beard Hunter, by consuming the facial hair of his targets, is able to track them through space and time, but is still unable to grow his own facial hair. The other villains of the series come in the form of the Bureau of Normalcy, an organisation dedicated to the removal of the weird and the strange from society. The irony is that dealing with such unique situations and characters has made the organisation just as quirky and strange. Superhero fiction is obsessed with the idea of saving the world, with said saving usually boiling down to punching the right people. Don't worry, the show has superhero style action, often balmy and wonderful action that you won't be able to predict. But the message of the show is that fighting is never really the answer. Talking is. Loving yourself is. Acceptance is. And what makes Doom Patrol so compelling is the truth that they may never quite reach those points of realization, but each time they try, they do get a little closer. Design and style. A major factor in what makes Doom Patrol stand out is its high production values. As mentioned earlier, action isn't really what the series is about. The producers instead choosing to focus on world building and character development, and fully embracing the weird and wonderful aspects of the comics with as much screen accuracy as possible. And I'm all about screen accuracy. The series takes massive inspiration from comic artist Richard Case's Doom Patrol designs, very much giving Doom Patrol a Twin Peaks vibe, and like that show, revels in its many surreal concepts. Everything from the beautifully comic accurate character designs to the subtlest details in Doom Manor have been thought about and done justice. The unique locations of Doom Patrol are the work of production designers Graham Grace Walker and Michael Z. Hannon. Graham Walker's work includes The Island of Dr. Moreau, Pitch Black, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and The Walking Dead. Michael Z. Hannon has a long-running career in production design, including Thomas Jane's The Punisher, Pet Sematary, the miniseries Tut, Californication, and Justified. Each location is as brilliant as the last. From the otherworldly ghost city of Nurnheim and its crazy denizens, the sinister corridors and occupants of the Bureau of Normalcy's ant farm, the physical representation of the underground in Jane's mind, a Nazi-inspired puppet show, which is a real series highlight by the way, and of course Danny the Street. Danny's the best. The incredible costumes featured on the series are the work of Carrie Grace and Laura Jean Shannon. Carrie Grace's work includes Preacher, House of Lies, True Blood, The Boys, and Tekken the Movie. Wait, there was a Tekken the Movie? Laura Jean Shannon is an award-winning costume designer with extensive work in the industry. Shannon has regularly worked with director Jon Favreau on films including Zathura, A Space Adventure, Chef, Iron Man, Elf, The Boys, Black Lightning, Titans, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, oh man I love Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and the excellent Future Man. And further adding to the authentic look of the characters are key makeup artist Deborah Rutherford, whose impressive career includes Argo, Gone Girl, several of the Mission Impossible movies, the Pirates of the Caribbean films, and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Hairstylist Alison Shepard, whose work includes the Happy Death Day films, Bad Mums, and Jungle Cruise, is also a massive part on creating the unique look for each cast member. Always immaculate, Rita's hair, makeup and clothing are as if she walked straight off of a 1950s silver screen and into the real world. Larry's coat and bandages just work. It's subtle, but again as if the character was taken straight out of the comics. Jane may not have a superhero costume, but mixed with an outstanding performance and some incredible makeup and visual effects, and clear thought put into each of her personality's distinguishing characteristics, really displays each of the personas perfectly on screen. Cliff's head is animatronic genius, the occasional blinks and head turns managing to convey so much. Cyborg just really works. It could so easily have been cheesy and stupid, but the practical effects and makeup matched with his earnest performance is terrific. It's a fascinating comparison to Ray Fisher's entirely CGI Cyborg. However, trumping them all is Mr. Nobody, whose design is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. The fact he doesn't quite fit the environment he inhabits is so jarring and menacing. matched with Tudyk's delightful scenery chewing. Not since Darth Vader has a villain truly looked this cool. Action. Though it is a superhero show, Doom Patrol isn't an action-heavy series, instead choosing to focus more on character and world building. And even though it is an incredible looking production, it is still working with a television budget, and the directors do a terrific job making excellent use of the team's various power sets and key sequences, and finding a fun balance between humour, ultra-violence, and even horror. Soundtrack. Doom Patrol's soundtrack is composed by Clint Mansell and Kevin Kinner. Clint Mansell's previous work includes Black Swan, Moon, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Carl Urban's Doom, that film is underrated, The Fountain, Titans, and Requiem for a Dream. You may not have seen that film, but trust me, you know its soundtrack. Kevin Kinner has been composing for television and film for over 3 decades, including Narcos Mexico, Stargate SG-1, Star Trek Enterprise, Star Wars Rebels, The Clone Wars, and The Bad Batch. But most importantly, he also scored David Hasselhoff's Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. They do an amazing job with infusing each episode with a terrific mix of quirky, sinister, and sometimes whimsical themes, and it beautifully complements the performances of all the cast. Doom Patrol also employs a wide collection of music from different eras to help establish the various time periods that the series takes place in. That Clancy Brown effect. Whenever I watch any cartoon, the first thing I check is, does it feature Clancy Brown? Clancy Brown is one of the all-time greats of cinema and television, most famous for his roles as the Kurgan in Highlander and Lex Luthor in the Bruce Timm DC era. Still to this day, the best Lex Luthor. The man has done a lot of voice work over the years, to the point where his presence has almost been a constant in shows I watched growing up. As a result, any show not featuring him will never in my eyes be truly great. He is not in this. Cast. Something unique to Doom Patrol is that 2 of its main characters are played by 4 people. Cliff Steele's actual physical performance is by Riley Shanahan, who does an amazing job conveying a wide spectrum of emotions through both extreme and very subtle body movement. Not an easy thing to achieve in such a clunky costume. This performance is elevated even more by Brendan Fraser's voice work. I love Brendan Fraser. He is never in enough stuff. Most famous for his roles in George of the Jungle and the Mummy movies, as well as Blast from the Past, which is great. Both he and Shanahan's performances are in many ways the heart of the show. Fraser also plays Cliff in flashback sequences, and the emotion he brings to those moments, especially with his daughter, are very moving. It could have easily been over the top, but both actors find a good balance with the role, which always keeps you rooting for Cliff, regardless of how stupid he is being at that moment. Larry Trainor, the Negative Man, when wrapped in the bandages, is physically performed by Matthew Zuck, whilst Matt Boomer plays him in flashback and fantasy sequences. Both give strong performances, conveying Larry's insecurities and unease around other people. Matt Boomer's previous work includes True Calling, Chuck, Will and Grace, American Horror Story, Magic Mike, and Magic Mike XXX. Boomer, being actually gay, is able to bring genuine depth to Larry as he comes to terms with his sexuality and failures as a father and a husband. The result is some of the more poignant and powerful moments of the series. James Bond himself, Timothy Dalton, brings real gravitas to Niles Caulder. It's a fascinating performance, as he walks the line of being a compassionate, loving father figure with surprising quirky tendencies, but also clearly someone that is ruthless and no stranger to the sinister aspects of life. As a result, Timothy Dalton's interactions with the cast are some of the darker and more compelling parts of the series. There are also some heartwarming moments that will make you smile. April Bowlby's performance as Rita Farr is a triumph. Hiding a trauma under a veneer of 1950s Hollywood-style bravado, Bowlby plays Rita as a person out of time, still dressing and acting exactly as a star of the silver screen would. In the company of others, she always projects a persona of elegance and class, even when at her most vulnerable, which makes the scenes where she loses control of her powers that much more awful. April Bowlby's previous work includes Drop Dead Diva and How I Met Your Mother, but is probably best known for playing Candy in 2.5 Men, a character that is the polar opposite to Rita. She plays Rita as a forgotten star that still craves adulation and fame, but is also terrified for anyone to see the true her, not just as the physical monster she has become, but for the monstrous things that she has done in her past. Diane Guerriero plays Jane. Well, actually, she plays Jane and 63 other people, and is incredible to behold. Guerriero is best known for being on Orange is the New Black and Jane the Virgin. Guerriero's ability to flow between such startlingly different personas is just jaw-dropping. Mixed with some terrific makeup and visual effects, I sometimes forgot it was the same actress. It's unnerving how she can go from a funny persona to violent and then to tragic in the blink of an eye. Relative newcomer Jovian Wade, whose previous work includes British soap opera EastEnders, Doctor Who and The First Purge, is perfect casting as Cyborg. He brings an immense likability to the character, who in this version is already well onto his way to becoming a major league superhero. He infuses Vic with determination and compassion, but also in his vulnerable moments, insecurity and isolation, clearly still dealing with his new state of being and what that potentially means for his humanity. And he does all of this while completely selling the costume design. Playing Cyborg's father, Silas Stone, is the legendary Phil Morris, the son of actor Greg Morris, who played Barney Collier in the original Mission Impossible series, which was also filmed at the same studio as the original Star Trek, leading to a very young Phil Morris and his sister to appear in the episode Miri. Phil Morris would return to Star Trek in various roles, including The Search for Spock, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Voyager. No stranger to the voice work, in particular with the DC Universe. Phil Morris has also appeared on Batman the Brave and the Bold, Green Lantern the Animated Series, and my all-time favourite depiction of Vandal Savage in Justice League. In live action, Morris also played John Jones, aka the Martian Manhunter on Smallville. However, without question, his greatest role will always be lawyer Jackie Charles on Seinfeld. His performance as Silas Stone is incredibly layered, an extremely distant father figure to Cyborg, who in his grief at the loss of his wife and mutilation of his son has become cold and controlling, leading to an ever increasingly tense and mistrustful relationship with Victor. Neither characters were part of the original Doom Patrol mythology, and it's a testament to the writing and the performances between Morris and Jovian Wade that any scenes featuring them are often some of the most compelling. Ezekiel the Cockroach is played by Curtis Armstrong, known for his roles in the Revenge of the Nerds movies, Moonlighting, and Metatron on Supernatural. My personal favourite role of his, however, is that of Snot on American Dad. Tommy Snyder's previous work includes Baskets, Shrill, and I'm Dying Here. He is as engaging as he is off-putting playing the Beard Hunter. Newcomer Abigail Shapiro is delightful playing Dorothy Spinner. Industry legend Ed Asner also makes an appearance. Fans may recognise him from Cobra Kai and playing Santa in Elf, but Asner is also a massive presence in voice work, my personal favourites being Granny Goodness in the Bruce Timm era of DC animation and Carl in Pixar's Up. Devin Lang is just wonderful as Flex Mentallo, perfectly conveying his simple nature and earnest kindness with a genuine goofy charm. Every scene he is in is a treat. Veteran of the industry Mark Shepard has appeared in many shows including Murder, She Wrote, Star Trek Voyager, Doctor Who, Soldier of Fortune and Firefly, but is probably best known for his roles in Supernatural and Battlestar Galactica. Here he is clearly having a great time playing Willoughby Kipling, stealing every scene he's in. Well, when Alan Tudyk isn't around he does. Okay, let's talk about Alan Tudyk as Mr. Nobody. In what is arguably the greatest example of scenery chewing ever depicted on screen, Tudyk, best known for playing Wash in Firefly, has appeared in several other DC related productions, including Powerless, Young Justice, and voicing the Joker on the excellent Harley Quinn. But his greatest role will always be as Steve the Pirate in Dodgeball. Tudyk is amazing in this. Working largely as the series narrator, he infuses Nobody with real menace and cruelty, going from humorous to terrifying in an instant. His tormenting of the characters through narration is in some cases almost more sinister than in his in-person interactions. Scenes between himself and Timothy Dalton are a particular highlight. How meta is it? The show is pure meta. As mentioned before, Mr. Nobody gives meta-narrative throughout, and there are constant Easter eggs towards the comics, including nods to the Brotherhood of Evil and the previous iterations of the Doom Patrol. Niles' love for chocolate is taken straight from the comics, and I must mention again that there are Nazi-inspired puppet shows. 5 Megaminds. Being honest, after seeing Titan, and the majority of the shows that these production teams had worked on beforehand, had put me off watching this series. But positive word of mouth led me to give it a try, and I am so glad I did. There isn't really anything like Doom Patrol. To say it is the best live-action production based on a DC property since The Dark Knight strangely doesn't do it justice. Doom Patrol is more than about superheroics, fighting over-the-top CGI villains, faceless army hordes, and of course, skybeams. It's about trauma and mental illness, and the isolation that comes with not having the means to deal with such things. It's about forming connections with others, and just how hard that can be for people who don't fit in with what society deems as normal. It's about broken people in both the physical and mental sense, who may or may not have been good and just in their old lives, but are trying to be the best in the present. and often failing spectacularly. It's a series that is tragic, uncomfortable, and sometimes surprisingly violent, but it's at the same time heartwarming, inspiring, and gloriously silly. As Rita puts it, this is a beautiful, ugly world. What a world the writers and producers of Doom Patrol have created, where anything can happen. Cockroaches can be prophets, streets can be sentient, and facial hair can give you glimpses into the very fabric of reality. The weird and the strange can also just as easily be wonderful and empowering, and I think that's a terrific message. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe, and feel free to check out some of my other content. Until next time.